On today's video, we're going to be discussing more welding, but it's more the chassis suspension components. We're going to be using 1/4 inch and 3/16 plate. I am not a professional at it, so we made sure we brought in the professional. In today's video, we're gonna dive deep into some MIG welding techniques. This is one you guys are not gonna wanna miss. This is Mike DiLuccia, did I say that right?
Yeah.
Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm just a welder.
Where do you work? What's your experience?
Been at Carli Suspension for 8 years now. Started off tacking parts, low man on the totem pole. Now I run a crew of 17 guys. And we do the best we can. And I want to be able to teach other people how to get better.
Mike is very modest. Mike is incredibly good. He makes MIG welds damn near look like a TIG weld. And it's always been the talk for, I think, at least a year that we've been trying to get this together.
Yeah.
And it just kind of worked out where we want to help promote what Mike's doing with teaching people. And there's going to be information in the description of this video so you guys can contact him if you guys are looking for a class yourself. We really want to show you how good he is today and what are the techniques that makes him the way that he is. And we're going to be doing it starting out with the MIG welder. Today we're going to be using a Miller 252. And there's a lot of settings in this thing that even I don't know about, so I'm excited to hear what that is. So you brought us some 1/4 inch 3/16.
Yep. Those are your normal materials in suspension components, long travel kits, stuff like that. Outside of trophy trucks, that's all 1/8 inch. That's a lot thinner stuff. So this is what I weld. This is what I'm versed in. So we're going to go through it.
So
see what we could do.
What are some of the basic things that somebody needs to know when they're welding these thicker metals?
Just clean material is a big thing. I mean, it doesn't have to be clean like TIG welding, but a clean material, when you start cutting through like this shop, Bondo and stuff on the welds, you're gonna get porosity, you're gonna have inclusions in your welds. It's gonna mess it up. Nice.
So cleanliness is godliness.
Nice pickle or P&O plate. That's the best.
What does that mean for?
Pickled and oiled plate.
Pickled and
like
oiled?
this.
So not mill scaled.
Yeah, so the hot rolled stuff, it's a nightmare. Yeah. Trying to grind that stuff off. If anyone out there has tried to grind it, you know how bad it is. This is what you want right here. Something clean like this, you can weld right through that laser. If it's plasma, you got to grind that edge down if you're welding the edge.
Now, some of the questions that I have is, like, you guys have these plates that you'll put them together and make a corner joint, and like I look at your welds and they're a perfect radius from where one plate meets the other. And how much of that is fitment and setup? Because like I know that if I spend time radiusing an edge, it might burn in a little different than others. Like you say, cleanliness is godliness, but how much of it is keeping things nice and square? And
that's a huge part of it.
Okay.
Huge part is keeping it square. Sometimes you can't, and then that rolls into your torch angle, your weld settings, and how you're manipulating the puddle. You know, I like to drag a lot. I like to be under the puddle, let gravity drop it down. There's so much that I do that's probably wrong compared to everyone else, but it works for me.
So when you say like dragging, is that, you said using gravity, are you going from bottom down, or are you going from top down?
From bottom up. So like I have crazy torch angle, not only pointing up, but pointing back as well. Pointing into the puddle.
Give us an example if these two are together with your...
Well, everything's left to right.
Okay.
If anyone tells you that's wrong,
so it's just like reading.
Them. Yeah, I do everything left to right. So something like this.
Okay.
You come in and you'd be something right here. And you'd walk through it like that. Stay behind it.
So you go this way.
Yep. So left to right. I pull, I don't push.
And I literally just told, I think, Mike the other day, like, hey, you should be going the other way because the gas coverage is in front of the...
You could fight that all day long. Structural welding, you got to push, not pull. I've had all the guys on my post tell me I'm doing it wrong. I don't know what I'm doing. It works.
Yeah, well, that's why I combat these things, and that's why I was excited to have you come, because I'll do those things, and I get a great weld, and then I go, well, but, you know, hey, I got to tell all my guys, push, so now I got to like, hey guys, let me renege on that.
Yeah, I mean, everyone does it different. I've seen guys that can get welds just like mine pushing. I don't know how they do it. It's way easier to pull for me, so I pull. And I haven't, to this day, I haven't had anything break. So
yeah,
it's pretty good.
And now in those trucks that you guys are building, so Carli Suspension, they get used and abused.
8,000 pound diesel trucks that you can go smash whoops. If you haven't seen a video, check out our Instagram. You'll see videos. You can take your truck, go pound whoops, hook back up to your toy hauler, and tow it home.
You're putting the torch in and dragging, so
correct.
How much of an angle are you typically to, like when you say torch angle, are we?
It all depends on where you're at. Like if you're welding on a bench primarily, it would be nice to have this part up something like this, and then you can get your torch angles better. Another thing is a lot of guys end up chicken winged up and they got the torch up here and they're ready to go, and you lose all your movement. Stay right here and you can do everything in your wrist.
In your wrist?
In your wrist.
So you more or less lock your arm?
Not lock, you just keep it smooth.
Okay.
And you're just here. I mean, for a year I strapped my arm down because all I used to do was weld tubing, and I was always chicken wing like this. You drop and you just move it in your wrist. It's all in the wrist.
Okay, happy. Some of the questions too, I know that a lot of people that are going to be watching this first time, what is the amperage and like gas settings that we're going to need? Is it change?
It all depends on, like this, you will have rudimentary, just normal settings for an open corner. A fillet weld, you'll have just normal settings, but then there's a part where it's got a fillet weld, a butt weld, an open corner. You have all these different welds, and there's one, you find the right setting that'll weld the whole part out with heat coming from over here, heating up this corner, that corner. You find what works best for you.
Okay.
What works for me is not going to work for everyone, but it's a good base setting.
Now, we're going to get into those settings in a little bit, but is there like a rule of thumb for this MIG that's similar to the TIG where you're setting per thousandths of an inch, or is that out the window when it comes to the MIG?
It all depends on what you're trying to achieve. If you're just trying to glue it together, 17.8/216, you can weld 1/4 inch and down with that. That's a good setting. 17.8 on the voltage, 216 on your wire speed.
What about gas flow? Like, is there a standard? I noticed you were changing the tip.
I like to run a 5/8 on my open corners, almost like a TIG welder. Bigger cut, bigger coverage. I could be wrong, it could do nothing, but I've noticed a difference. So I like to run the bigger cup, and then the smaller cup seems to weld hotter for fillet welds and stuff like that. The more structural welds, I like to run the smaller cup.
Backwards is to what you would think.
Exactly.
Something that I didn't know when I saw you do that was, I've never even picked a different tip ever. It's
the nozzle, not the tip itself. It's the actual gas nozzle.
Right.
Yeah. So this one right here.
And we're using 30 thousandths wire. Is that going to be sufficient for what we're doing?
That's everything. I miles and miles and hundreds of miles of wire through my shop, and that's what we run.
Okay. Gas flow, like what do you set it at typically?
I'm a firm believer in, I'd rather spend the money wasting gas than cutting a weld out. So 25 to 30 is what I run always.
Okay.
I keep it nice and high, and if it gets windier, I'll go higher. My time is more valuable welding than it is cutting out a blown out weld.
Have some dust.
Alrighty.
Thankfully, the machine's only a couple months old.
Yeah, no, it should be good.
So that helps. Otherwise, if we had the other one,
yeah, we'll see what we can get out of this weld coat. We'll see what we can tune in on it. It's not the cleanest, but...
So what do you like to use?
At the shop, we use Pinnacle or Washington alloy, or if you want to spend the money, L56 from Lincoln. It's good, but it's expensive, but it burns good.
Without this?
Oh. I knew I forgot something.
What's that?
Can of spatter spray. That's what keeps all the spatter super.
Want WD? You don't like WD?
It works, but it's got water in it, so it doesn't act as good. But I know that's an old timer trick that does work. All right, I'll tack a couple of corners.
So you've got quite a few different variations here tacked together from 3/16 to 1/4 inch. On this piece, this is just a what do you want to call this? Fillet weld?
Joint. Yeah.
So for your typical chassis that you're going to weld together, I have tried for years to try to get that even, perfect, consistent. Sometimes you're like, I've tried so many things. I've tried spotting and then move and try to make it look more like a stacking a dime, little trigger weld, but then I know that it's not going to be as strong because you're just tack welding basically. And then, you know, can you do the U back and forth? Are you doing the front to back? What are
cursive E's?
Cursive E's.
13 years old, that's what my dad told me. Just write cursive E's. That's what you get out of it.
So when you're doing that, it's more of watching the puddle and how far out.
It's simple to just say a cursive E, but there's a way you loop, you swoop, and you pause, and you roll, and you pause, and you roll. How fast you move, upwards and lateral. It's not just moving left to right. There's lateral up movement when you loop back through that puddle. And then you pause at the top, let it fill, and then you roll and pull. Roll and pull.
Can you give us a demonstration of what that, in nice slow motion?
So right here, you start, you fill, you keep it tight, and then you roll back, pause, and roll. Pause.
So you're more or less letting it build up at the top and then rolling it down through.
You got gravity that wants to pull that molten metal down. So when you pause right here, it starts to roll down. And you can see what I'm tracing. It's essentially the puddle.
Yep. Nice even spacing.
Correct. Make sure your torch angles are right. The brown around your welds, the gnarlier your torch angle, the more you're going to get. From what I've been told, that's the gas burning off into the puddle. So you get all that brown stack over it. It looks cool. Everyone likes it for pictures. I don't know if it makes a difference or not. It does look cool. I like to do it.
So you're keeping it, what kind of angle did you say you were doing for that?
I like to be able to see, so I like to kick it back, and you're almost backfilling your puddle.
So you have that thing at a pretty...
So something like that.
That's a pretty drastic angle.
Depending on what you're doing. I mean, you can get right on top and be right here and drag this way. I like to have the part right in front of me with a little bit of twist back, and I just wrist twist out of it. I like it with I'm right-handed, I weld left to right, so I like to kick it right this way.
Oh, okay.
And then you'll come something like this, and you can run the whole thing out.
Cursive E's. And then do you have to tip the torch? Say one is thicker than the other one. Let's say we're welding 1/4 inch to 3/16. You're going to angle the torch more towards the thicker piece, correct?
Correct. Yes. Yeah, that's how you do that. It's pushing that material more in there.
Okay.
Keeping the heat into it.
Okay.
And there's certain ways with your rotation of your puddle too. I like to pull through the thicker stuff because I feel like it's penetrating and grabbing deeper when you roll through it. So you'd go like this. I try and keep everything counterclockwise.
Okay.
For the most part. I understand there's some situations where you got to weld vertical down and you can't go a full circle and you're more of a push-pull. But when I do that, I like to run a little more heat, less wire.
For the guy who doesn't even know what amperage to set that at, if you got a guy in his garage who has no idea, like maybe he doesn't have a Miller 252, what's a good rule of thumb? Are there things you're looking for setting amperage?
You want to hear bacon searing on the pan. You want Saturday morning watching cartoons, mom's making bacon. That's what you want to hear. And it's that sizzle.
Good gas flow, obviously, 25 to 30.
Correct.
That's pretty standard.
Some people don't like to run that high.
Because they want to conserve gas.
Exactly.
Really, for our channel, we're trying to appeal to the guy who wants to do the best that they can do with what they have. So, correct. For me, I'm going to always set 25 to 30 CFH. CFH, right?
CFM, I think. CFH? I don't know.
I got it wrong on the last video.
I just say
CFH. Yeah. So anyways, as far as when you're playing with wire speed versus amperage, how do you know what to start with as far as like, where do you start if you know nothing about wire speed or amperage?
Kind of the base setting when I first started at Carli. Luckily, someone threw a setting at me and it was 17.6200. Start from there. Go from there. That's on a digital machine running 030 and running 7525 gas. 9010 is going to run different. 8515 is going to run different. This is literally for 75-25 gas and 030 wire. You're gonna have totally different settings if you're running 035 or 023, like totally different setting. I mean, if you've got just the digital, start a 110 welder that's non-digital, just A, B, C, D.
Right, like that one over there.
Just start off hot and try your wire speed and go from there. You gotta hear it, you gotta listen to it. It's gonna tell you what's going on, and if you look at it, you'll be able to tell what's going on too.
In your opinion, how accurate is those charts that they give you with the welder as a starting point?
That's if you just wanna push and drag something that's not making that effect.
Right.
So I normally go 1/8 inch setting is probably a 3/16 setting. And then the 3/16 is probably closer to a 1/4 inch setting for the way I do it. The way they have it in there is a structural push. You're just pushing a puddle, no manipulation, you're just dragging it. Compared to the Cursive E.
Yeah, because for me, this, just in 5 minutes of what you said, I already am gonna have a game changer.
Well, I want you to sit down and
Yeah, well, we're gonna do it.
down, and then I'll nitpick it and we'll make it better.
Yes, okay.
You'll have that within a 20-minute period. You should.
Hopefully.
Probably in 5
can all
minutes,
hope.
to be honest.
We just did a TIG video.
Okay.
Good, bad, or indifferent. It was what I knew for sheet metal, nothing structural. But I noticed, and the reason that for so many years I never did a video on it was because I couldn't see.
Correct.
So my question is, how much do the settings change in the darkness of your helmet?
It depends on what level hood you're using. Like the speed glass here, I could weld at 13 and still see everything. At a
So the
13
quality of the hood
correct.
is not necessarily just a setting change.
No. It's how clear everything is. There's different colors to it. Like this hood's a little bit green, but more bluish. It's just super clear. And the bigger the view, the more stuff you can see around it.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, you should only be focusing on your arc, not focusing on what's going on here, there.
No, but for me, like, the
Being able to
difference of
actually
being
see.
here with I'm tigging to here,
Yeah.
I would lose all of my sight. And it was, I know I could TIG weld decent, but as soon as I was out of focus.
Yeah. And then another thing too, you know, you got lights right above you, is the glare in the back. That's what this little cape's for. And it helps a lot with
Does that help?
being able to see.
Why does a helmet sometimes kick on and kick off? Is it
That's
a battery issue? Is it
Picking
a,
up stuff around, like at work, we unplug the forklift lights because they kick off the sensors for the auto darkening.
really?
Yeah. So like we found that out. One of the forklifts does it. The other ones don't do it. Yeah.
So
Don't know how,
sometimes,
don't know why.
sometimes mine would start doing that, and I change nothing. I'm in here by myself some
It
nights.
could just be the way it's picking up the light
Swap batteries,
and it works.
seem to fix it.
My
know.
hoods have a low battery light on it and tell me when the battery's
Yeah,
low, so
mine-
maybe that's part of it.
Half the time I'm over here doing body work, and I can see my hood in the corner flashing, and I'm like, oh.
That's another thing. I like to keep them face down or in a bag, so you're not killing your batteries.
Okay, all good info.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
I want you to try this.
let's do it.
Alrighty.
I also noticed you got a little bit thinner of a glove than the standard MIG gloves that people like.
No, I mean, normally if I'm full production going and I'm gonna do a pass
You're using
6 to 12 inches long, I'll do a thicker glove like this, but I also keep my hands way farther back.
You're not right up
I'm not
on it.
groping it.
Okay. Any particular distance that you like to be?
It's kind of whatever preference you like, however you feel
Is this
comfortable.
where it needs to be? I'm gonna go for it, and then I think
I'll just watch
we'll
it and
just go. We'll just talk about it. All right, here we go. Do you start any specific place, or
So the big thing about welding, from some of the first thing I ever did, was oxyacetylene welding. It's you got to form a puddle and move a puddle. If you just pull the trigger and start moving, you don't have anything built up to move.
Yep.
So you got to build the molten material and make it move.
starting to center?
So
more or less?
one little circle and then go from there.
Okay.
All right, I'd kill it right there. So you're more pointing down which is resulting in it going higher.
So I was like this?
Yeah, and you're making that motion go up way over dramatic. Another thing you can do is if we take this, just lift it up a little bit.
Comfort. I've noticed that with TIG. The more I
ABC's
can
the
put
welding.
props and things around,
ABC, always be comfortable. That's the biggest thing.
always be
So-
comfortable.
Yeah. So the one thing I would do is you're gonna want to come get these pliers. You want to get more like this, to where you're just pushing in, and you're not going like that. So you're doing that. It's just this,
So it's very small E.
just nice and tight and smooth. That's not bad, dude. But you just want to be something like that. We're not dropping our wrists like that. We're just moving like this. And then I also,
So it's almost like you're coming out and in a little bit too.
I do, correct. So I'm coming and pushing back into it. And out and in, and out and in. So I would try that a little bit.
Now, something that I picked up on that you do is you cut this thing so you get a nice, good initial.
Not every time, no. Just if it's too far stuck out and it looks kind of burnt like it was, there's guys that'll tell you you got to cut after each one, and I've never dealt with it. There's settings in there which we didn't even get into that I forgot to do, that we can change that. You can change your run-in settings where how fast the wire is coming out of the gun on startup. So your initial arc. You can drop it super low so the wire comes out slow, or you can go super high so it arcs faster and gets a bigger buildup in the beginning.
Did not know that.
We elevated the part a little bit to make it more comfortable
Okay.
for welding. And now instead of looping through the bottom, like twisting your wrist down, just come in and out. But your movement back's obviously not going to be that drastic because you've got a ball of material at the end of this, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're more. Yeah.
You're essentially just writing cursive E's.
But down lower. Alrighty.
You want to try that other hood yet?
Yeah, in a second.
So not as much bottom, more top. There you go. We're getting
I'll be
better.
damned.
You just need to go
I mean,
a
that's
little bit bigger.
That's the best MIG weld that I've had.
So you
for
just need to
structural
go
stuff.
up a little more. Your bottom's fine.
Because of the gravity. I go up and let it.
So essentially, you want to look at this right down, like you're sighting a 2x4, and you want to be 50-50, flat profile in the middle. Right there, 50-50. You just need to go up a little more. Your bottom's perfect. You started out.
Because otherwise it
enough
just
bottom.
stays sagged at the bottom, right?
You
Where
want
it's
to
bulkier.
You want a smooth transfer. Instead of like this, I run right into it. This, I can coast up and down.
Gotcha. Okay. So something that a lot of people don't know, and I'm learning, like that thing's super hot as we ran through it. If we flipped it around and then welded it on the backside because it's so hot, what pros and cons are there?
I feel like the hotter the part is, or like if you weld on the backside or next to the same weld, the more spatter. It's almost like a magnet. There's probably some scientific reason behind it that I don't know, but I just know it like magnetizes the spatter to it.
Really?
Correct.
And I noticed you mentioned that anti-spatter spray is
Anti-spatter spray is your best friend.
versus
paint over it.
WD-40, if you
Yes.
guys have used it.
WD-40 is an old timer thing. I've done it in a pinch.
I'm an old timer.
Yeah, I've done it. Spatter spray works better. It smells, it's not the greatest sometimes, but I don't like the water-based. Water-based leaves the black streaks and your part looks like crap after. So I like using the actual acid, not good for you to breathe, so wear your respirator. You want to try my other hood?
Yeah. I wanted to like really remember what WD-40 is like a big no-no in our shop, because if like I could be over here, spray something, and that
it'll travel.
Tiny little bit will travel.
Yeah.
And then you got Fisheye City later. So
yeah,
we rarely use WD. But which, if you guys are wanting to know, for that stuff, or you got stuff that you don't want rusting, use Gibbs oil. Gibbs oil doesn't have silicone in it. That's the real thing. I wouldn't use it for this, but all right.
Would it work though?
You have to try
You ever
it.
tried Gibbs?
I don't know.
All right.
We can try it.
So the big difference between this hood and like some of the cheaper hoods is really just what you can dial in and really see. Yeah.
So the $100 hood, you're not going to have the clarity. You're also not going to have the big viewing area. You're going to be stuck into just that small spot. There is guys out there that love it, that can weld just as good as me with that. I like
whatever you
I like
practice.
cheating
Yeah.
at that point, you know. If it works, it works.
Works smarter, not harder, right?
And you're investing in your eyeballs at the end of the day.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is get flash burn.
True. True. All right, so we got a new piece. No more heat input here.
So you got to go to the bottom a little more. There you go. Just like that. And drag up. Up, 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 up. There we go. All right, kill that guy right there. See, once you went down just a little more.
Yeah.
So right here, you started off. You
Go ahead. You do it.
Okay.
And then we'll reread it.
Started off, and we weren't going low enough. The height is perfect. We just weren't low enough. So then you course corrected when I told you to, and now you went low is perfect, but not high enough. So now what we want to do is come through and we drag up just a little bit higher.
I noticed as I was doing it, the whole lateral move kind of clicked a little bit, because it's
any movement to the right is also going up. It's not just to the right, it's going up. So it's at this angle here. You're going up.
Makes sense.
And you're looping, you're just a little pause, and then you roll back into it and then go up again. Then roll back in and go up again. Like, honestly, you take a piece or a notebook of lined paper and you write cursive E's and you go line to line, and then you go two line to two line, and before you know it, overnight, you're gonna be sleeping.
you guys
cursive E's.
can weld better and do calligraphy all at the same
Exactly.
time.
It's essentially calligraphy with metal. Keep it moving. Little higher, little bit higher. There we go, right there. Keep moving. Listen to that purr. That's what you want to hear. Are you floating your hand, or are you leaving it on the table?
It was floating. More control.
This is your
obviously.
drag. Yes, you can see you got a little shaky at the end.
Yeah.
But I mean, look at the difference.
So you're always on the table and just
Yeah, this and this part right here, I mean, the gloves have a drag patch for a reason, for dragging. So I just keep it right here, and it's,
okay. I always say the biggest jumps you take in what we do in anything is it's always a bunch of little tiny tips.
exactly.
And out of my entire lifetime of welding, that is the best MIG weld that I have had. I think that pretty much is just keep practicing that technique
Correct.
and finding that even flow.
You had, look at from there to there,
Yeah.
and then your hand got tired because you were floating.
Yep.
So from there to there, I mean, dude, that's textbook off-road MIG weld right there.
Yeah. I think the biggest takeaway for me on seeing this is before I was focusing on the puddle, thinking of the puddle more like the TIG, where I'm always trying to control exactly where the puddle is. And here you're using gravity to your advantage and going up and seeing it fall into place more or less.
It's almost, you can get your whole body into it.
Yeah.
You're over there doing Tai Chi while you're welding. You
Well, I
can
always
get
say
just-
put on good music and something that you flow or...
Correct. Yep. You just flow into it, and it's just smooth. Everything's smooth.
Okay.
And make sure you're breathing while you weld. If you hold your breath, you're going to be tight.
Yeah, I think as I'm learning it, I'm thinking about all these things where I can go in my own zone tonight and just wig out on this thing. But cool.
You want to do some open corners?
Yeah, I think what changes, because obviously here, you know, we're going up because of gravity, but here you're flat. What are the things we're going to look for here?
We're going to set this up essentially the same way.
Okay.
We're going to run it just like that.
Okay.
We'll go a little bit colder on our settings, and we'll just run this open corner all the way up. I'll jump in, I'll do an inch, I'll let you watch, and then I'll let you complete it out.
Now, for if you guys are, I would assume this is going to, when we go colder, it's because maybe we're doing something that's overhead.
Correct, overhead, and you're not, you have a gap to fill. You have essentially a gap to fill here.
Yep.
Like I want this after it's welded to look like it was a radius break.
Yep.
Like if you got to go metal finish it, minimal grinding.
Sanding it, yeah.
You can come through with a Scotch-Brite, brown Scotch-Brite pad and knock that weld down.
Okay.
Instead of really having to hit it with a 60 grit or 36 grit or something gnarly, you know.
Because I know a lot of the guys that are going to be at home in their garage doing maybe a C-notch on a truck, they're going to have to get under there and they're not going to have
position, yes.
Upside down.
Yeah.
So you can't treat your C-notch at home
like you're welding on the bench.
Like you're welding on a bench, because just because you had a good setting up on the top doesn't mean you can use the same setting underneath.
Correct. Depending on where you're at, like if that was me, I would do all the easier welding first to heat it up, and then I can go to a little bit slower setting, a little bit less wire, that's more controllable because it's already heated up. And when I'm overhead, I'm not rushing to do it.
Gotcha.
I get a good setting going for it.
Gotcha. I'm assuming when you're in your work setting, you have like a cheat sheet of settings.
Correct.
On the welder that you know you like on this thickness, this wire, that corner, butt joint, upside down.
There's certain parts where I have a setting that I can weld anything start to finish because the way I do the weld out. I start with the keyways. You weld all the keyways first. That heats up the rest of the part, and then when you go to do this fillet weld, it's hot and it's burnt in. You don't have to be as hot. Or you do the edge welds first because you want to run a colder setting, and then it heats everything up, and then you don't have to change your settings again. There's so many ways to do it.
The things that come to mind there for me is, let's say we're doing a control arm.
Mm-hmm.
Those control arms have a jig, I assume?
Yes.
So you put them in the jig and they got the keyways where they lock together, and you do the keyways first to get the part up to heat. I already know that when you put call it a tack weld, it's going to shrink and pull in there and make things move. So how do you control heat and excessive warpage? Is it enough to fixture something that it's not going to move? When you unfixture it, does it pop out?
So for us, for like the A-arms we do, I just take a thick wall piece of tubing that's essentially about the same as what the joints are on the frame side. And I tack it, we tack everything up, and then you tack that right to that part. Then you weld the part out and you jump around your corners, you jump around, do it, and you don't weld it all out in one go. You got to jump around and do it right. Spread your heat out. Then it cools all the way off. Then you cut it out of the jig, you could call it, that's holding it straight. Then it goes back into the fixture to get the frame pivots on.
Okay.
So I don't weld
that
with
way,
the frame. You're grinding it out, you have your jig that's right, you're not worried, you're not...
So you get the structural part more or less done.
Correct.
And the things that are essential, your pivot points.
Yes, you do after.
And then when it comes to the pivot points, do you have to weld, for example, if I know I weld on one side, it's going to pull up, and then versus pulling on, do you do it evenly? Like an inch and an inch, or do you do it?
No, I just put heavy tacks on everything.
Okay.
You just do your settings a little bit hotter so you get a good burn in there. And chamfering, you know, putting a nice bevel around your cups, stuff like that. The sheet metal itself, a nice deep chamfer so you can get a good tack in there, and then you can weld right through it.
It does help too to tack weld your corners first as well, right?
Correct.
So you don't get that blowout when you get to the end?
Yeah, so certain things, like this one right here, we're gonna put another tack over that because you're gonna be moving this hot puddle all the way through, and at the end you're gonna have undercut. So to get away with that, you just burn a second tack over it, and then you melt it all together.
Okay, so you wanna do this one?
Yeah, I'll do a little inch or two, and I'll adjust the settings.
We have a couple of these. Why don't you go ahead and burn this one all the way?
Okay.
Because I wanna show people what you're actually capable of. Even though we'll get some stuff from you
Yeah, let me see how this setting works.
to use.
So does that cursive E make sense?
Yeah, you do it a lot
it on-
slower.
On the open corner, you've got a top line and a bottom line, so it makes it a lot easier. And notice how the puddle is actually red the whole time. It's giving a good burn. I'm not just pulling crazy far out.
Look at that, Mike. Bonkers. It's all right.
Decent.
Subpar.
It's all in your start. You want to lay down a good base puddle in the beginning there, and then you just move it and you stay with it. You'll see at the top here when you roll up, you'll see it crown over. You pause at the top and you see it crown over, and then that's when you move. Did you notice that?
No, don't think I was looking for it.
So, like right here, this is going to be.
So just draw it on here as what you're.
Let me set that back this way. Get it up. So you want to start your good base of your puddle here, and then roll from there. And you get to this top edge, and you'll see it eat the edge. Is what I call it.
Okay.
You'll literally, you get the wire up there, and you'll see it crown over, and that's when you move.
Got it.
And then the bottom, gravity does the work for you. Gravity gives you this line. I mean, you got line. You literally have 2 lines, and you're just going point to point.
So let's say this was upright in a car, vertical.
You can do that.
You just need to move.
Correct.
So it falls.
I mean, you've got this one here that's a crazier angle than that, and you would just come through. Same thing. You would just, instead of it a left to right, you would be a vertical, and you get more oval with it, and you'd stay behind your puddle, and you'd push it back up in, something like that.
So that way you're using the gravity up and down. Maybe more or less up in the top of the oval, you slow down a little bit more.
You want to keep it tight and hot. So one thing you don't notice here is little, I call them buttholes in the weld. It's cold laps.
Okay.
Is butthole okay for YouTube? I don't know, we'll find out. So little, you can see one almost right there where I just pulled a little too far. It's cold laps. You let the puddle cool way down before you went back into it. So that's where, like, the stack and tacks with the trigger welds, you see all those little holes in the middle of it, the little craters, like that right there. But in every single one, it's cold laps. You're moving out way too far, that puddle's getting so cold, and then you're coming back in and not heating it enough. Because it's not like a TIG welder where you can just bash the throttle.
I know that the best way that I would get a decent trigger weld was always paying attention to, as soon as the glow's almost out, hitting it before it goes all the way out.
Like, I mean, there's a setting on the robots that does that. It's a stitch pulse, they call it. I was so against it. Then I watched it do it, and you can, down to the millisecond, get it hot like that, and it looks just like that. But it's stitch welded, it has the same amount of heat and everything. You can do it. Sheet metal, it's fine. Am I gonna trigger weld some 1/4 inch plate? Hell no.
Yeah, because the problem there is the only way we're going to get somebody at home to do a patch panel in sheet metal and not have excessive warpage is to be doing a tack, jump over here, do a tack.
You have to do, yes. And I mean, you see through the back, it's full penetrated through. You can see it starting to blow through, you know? That's what you want. One thing I messed up on the fillet welds, this little trick that you're going to find neat, you essentially get a chisel about the size of that, right? You'd like to copy and paste this onto a T-joint. And if you have a good hood, you have
could actually see
imaginary
it.
lines to go to. You don't have to go to it. That's your straight edge.
That's where you're getting your puddle edges to.
Correct. I mean, you can use bigger, smaller, a screwdriver works. Anything will work. You can do your lines.
I got just the thing.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Now we can piss off all the machinists.
What do we call these again?
What's it called?
Man.
Wing separator divider.
Oh, jeez.
I prefer to use calipers because it really infuriates people.
Yes, it does. That's not designed for that.
The machinists
Especially
really.
when you call them micrometers. They love that.
This is a month.
They love that.
Yeah, dude, that's perfect because you can really dial it in.
Yeah.
And then now you have essentially your edge weld point to point.
That's pretty cool.
But you ain't gonna be able to see that.
Maybe if I get my glasses.
Probably with that hood,
Maybe.
you can go a little bit lighter.
No,
Like
I can
11
see a
and a
lot
half.
more with this, that's for
Okay.
sure.
Funny.
Yeah.
So that
I'm
was
gonna try
the
that.
same movement.
Same movement, you just have a point to go to.
So you're controlling your,
How fast
Puddle.
you're whipping it.
it's the same motion.
It's essentially the same, you just manipulate it either a little more drug out or a little more tighter. If that motion works for just about anything you're gonna do. Unless you come into something where it's just a push-pull. You're just going forward, backwards, sometimes that happens. Like on smaller 1/8 inch stuff, I push-pull it. I get my settings
Because
right.
it's such a tight.
Correct. It's just so tight, there's no room to manipulate that. If you went down to like a 023 wire, you'd have that manipulation. But
Yeah.
there is guys out there that can do it. I just can't do it. 3/16 1/4 inch, that's my game, that's what I'm good at. I stick to what I know.
That's cool.
Do you want to jump in and weld? Do you need to do that?
All right, I'll do an inch and critique it. All right, gotta focus on my hand being on the table here. And
So I like to be right here like this. And you use that drag. So you bring this so little, you keep your body towards the left side and you literally just
So you
look
can
at
see
it.
it?
Yep, so you're like this, staring at your weld.
it was more of a, okay,
It's nice and smooth all the way through.
okay.
You're too tight, move it. Smooth. See how you can see it cresting over the top?
Yep.
So pause at the top. There we go. Now pause. There we go. Roll it. We're just super tight.
Yeah, so space them out a little more.
Yep, just space it out. Like your start was a lot better. And then you started listening to me and going,
Yep.
"Da-da-da-da-da."
Forgot everything out the window.
Exactly.
It still looks good.
So that right there, you just want to come through and it's, you could hear it, it was like da, 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 the whole time. You
Paying
want it
attention to that
smooth,
sizzle.
that sound, that's telling you either I'm going too slow or I'm going too fast. But you can arc right off that and you just nice and smooth. You want to get a little bit more, you want to pause here, not here.
Okay.
You were pausing down at the bottom.
The swoop is consistent, pause at the top.
Pause here, roll, and move. So like
Okay.
your lateral up is a little bit faster movement
Okay.
than your back through.
Okay.
Because your fill isn't going like this. Your fill is when you come
You're
back
just
through.
more or less resetting and then dragging it slow.
Correct.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
But not so fast that you lose the arc.
Okay.
The arc needs to stay consistent.
Right, okay.
Less down, more up. There it is. See that crest over the top? It's like a wave crashing. All right, tie it off right there. Damn.
That's cool.
So to keep, so see your lower has a lot more fill. See how it's like
Yeah.
you'll
More
run
bulky.
into it, where this is smooth transfer top to bottom. All you need to do, also, you could drop your torch angle down a little bit and push it up into that, and you'll see it. It's
Controlling
almost,
that
it's almost like a
pull.
wave crashing over. That's what you want to see. That pause at the top builds that, and then you roll. Pause
Okay.
and roll.
Okay. I also noticed
would-
I'm not smooth with dragging.
We could prep the table a little bit more.
Excessive rust.
Yeah. But yeah, you want to keep that. I would get it to where you're more pointing upwards. So
Okay.
whether that's you drop your chair or
Okay.
you know, you could drop it a little more and then you're just whipping through it.
The other thing is I went back to this too.
That's fine. Whatever works.
Well, I'm trying to,
Well, you're
I
getting
want to
good.
try what you're doing.
You're getting good welds there. So
All right.
yeah, there it is. See that roll? A little bit higher. There it is. So not bad. Not bad at all. We just You're listening to me, you're correcting, and we just need to
A
reset
lot of
and
things
start
to be
over.
thinking about.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is breathe.
Yeah.
Just breathe the whole time, and dude, you could do a tempo count. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're not doing any movement to it at all. You're just doing a count to slow everything down. Slow your movements down.
Makes sense.
And it looked like you were coming super far down, kind of like what we had on the fillet weld there, where you came
I'm
more
so used to
down.
following the puddle evenly, I think. It's trying to break that habit of, I think I used to do the C back and
Yes,
forth.
yeah, to see the little wobble
And
back
it always
forth.
ended up fat.
Yes.
And now it makes complete sense.
Yeah, you have your point to go to, and we're not bad. We're getting that. The top edge is all we need to work on. Your bottom edge right here is good. You corrected. We just need to get that top edge right. And I think if we drop torch angle to point a little more up, instead of being into it like that, we just drop a little, and smooth movements will be good.
Okay.
Going up is your friend.
Yeah.
You and all the pipe welders, dude. Oh, you gotta do it vertical up. You can kind of see how I would be. See where I'm at? I don't have this all the way up. Shoulders are down,
Okay.
postured out, and ready to run it all the way through. See the difference
Way
in
more
that
relaxed
torch
than
angle?
I would normally be.
Yeah, and run it. Dude, sit there 3, 4, 5 times like that. Make sure you're in your full range of motion.
And you were saying it's just in your wrist.
All in your wrist. I mean, look at right here.
I notice you're like a tick mark as you move sideways. At what point are you, when you're going up, are you moving over?
Kind of just dragging my hand the whole time. Explain it, kind of just moves. And it might be a little bit different when the arc's actually on. Because I could be this tight with the arc on or this big out. It all depends on what the puddle ends up doing.
Gotcha.
Because I mean, you can come all the way out here if you want and get silly with it, as long as you cut back in and cover. That's not the right way to do it, but you can.
Makes
You want
sense.
to keep it nice and smooth like that.
Okay.
But having your torch angle dropped like that, you're gonna watch that wave crash. You're gonna see that just roll right through.
Yeah, I can see it at the end. Okay.
So I would get it, drop some. Maybe you want to switch chairs if this one's a little lower.
Okay.
Get yourself lower, you know.
Yep.
I would try that out.
Yeah, it does feel better being
Oh,
down
yeah.
lower.
So still, see. There we go, something like that.
Okay.
Down
Down here.
and down. Get
Feels so
like
awkward.
that.
You want to be right here.
I'll be damned. Okay.
And all this hand's doing is dragging.
Do you have a thicker glove at all? You don't look like you're stick welding. You can wear that one.
That's all fucking melted. It's from having water.
Does that feel any better? Like with the type of leather and stuff,
Yes.
you know?
Yes, that one sticks. It's funny because like that is such a small thing that you would never think about as the material.
Correct. And having that smooth leather to drag on compared to
Yeah, this grips.
like a, what would you call that?
And what make are these?
Those are mechanics. That's what we run at the shop.
Really?
We supply those for the guys. That's all we run is their drivers and then their
That makes it so much smoother.
And also not running a traditional MIG glove. A traditional MIG glove is
Yeah, that real thick.
big, bulky like this and has
Can't feel
little
anything.
short fingers. Like, you don't need that. Especially if you choke back on your torch and you're not all the way up in it. You don't need your hands all the way up in there. You need to develop that wrist strength.
Makes sense. So, and I'm more pointing at the upper plate.
Correct.
I think my thing is I'm not used to.
Well, and that thumb right there is gonna, you want to get more like this.
Like this.
Something like, whatever's comfy for you, it'll work. If you
I'm
want to
trying to get rid of that muscle memory.
If you want to grip that, you can grip it. Just make sure you still have your range of motion.
Gotcha. Because I'm limiting my motion by putting my thumb on it.
Correct. You're
Got it.
fighting your other hand. This hand, all this hand should be doing is
Stabilizing.
dragging. It shouldn't be doing anything but a post and a drag.
Okay.
That's it. This is
I
your
think
left
that's
or right.
I'm so used to holding grinders, cutoff wheel, everything.
Well, and transfer over to working on a car.
Hands, yeah.
Okay. Everyone has C-clamps. Normally, if they're working on a car, put a C-clamp there and then clamp another C-clamp to that. Boom. You have a drag to go off of. I get it. You're not always going to be in position. It's going to be out of position, but this is practicing for out of position. You know, once you get this down, then you can go, okay, cool. I'm not going to sit down. I'm going to stand here and do this. I'm going to lay over. You know, you can practice all of it on the bench.
Makes sense. Okay. Here we go.
There, see that top one? That was perfect.
Oop.
That top was perfect where you
Where
went
it
over
went
and
all the way
rolled.
over.
Now you're just.
I'm
you're
trying
going,
to get this. I'm thinking about this.
gotta get that
and
comfy.
Man, I cannot.
Yeah. I mean, what I do is I put a nice
Some grease on that,
45 on there, and then I hit it with a 80 grit DA, and then Scotch-Brite with WD-40 to make it shiny and smooth. And then you want to make sure that thing's all nice and smooth too.
Yep. Yeah,
And then drop. You went back to this. Keep it dropped.
keep it down.
That elbow down and
It
in.
did help to have this here. I keep forgetting that.
And
too.
you can, naturally, I like to have it twisted back a little bit that way.
Okay.
Oh, up, up, up. There we go. Up, up, up. A little more farther up. There it is. And move that thing out. You're too tight. We're going too low again. There we go.
Much better.
Oh,
We're still super tight on our fill. You could pull out a little bit more. You know what I mean? If you just went out a little more, the spacing of it.
Farther, a little bit.
Correct.
bigger.
Just a little bit more out. You know, right here, you were way less on the low. That was good. You want to get that thing up more. I see what you're doing. You're going like this. You're starting here and then you're ended up like this. You want to keep that down and roll. You just went your torch angle down. There we go.
Man.
Just get comfortable first.
Yeah.
Figure out how this is comfy and then run it.
It just feels weird to weld like this, I think.
Yes. There it is. Up more. Stop worrying about the bottom too much. There you go. Yes, that height is perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
There it is.
Such a difference being lower.
But did you see that? Like you almost, when you went up, you hit a wall and it went,
Yeah.
that's what you want.
Yeah. It's definitely a different mindset to try to keep that thing. It feels so out of place being down.
But that's just with the open corners, you got gravity fighting you.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go colder and you could sit there and do whatever you want, diddle dally the whole time, but I like having that heat. Like that's honestly probably hotter than most people out there weld at. A lot of the stuff I do is a lot hotter than most people do. When your spatter falls right off, it's how you know you have good settings. Alrighty.
All right. Now that we've finished doing the welding at the table, I just wanted to drive it home with Mike on what the takeaways were that we did and show you guys on a little bit bigger view the actual motion. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's not necessarily being directly on your joint. It's controlling your puddle using the gravity to put that puddle where you need it to be.
Correct.
And that is going to change on thickness, amperage. What we are wanting is that sizzling bacon sound. And as loose as I could make that term, it is precision sizzling is what I would say, because it's the smallest change in that sizzle to get that perfect consistent roll where you see that arc flow over the top edge and then just make the bottom perfect. It is that ebb and flow, that art, right?
It's smooth. It's staying smooth. Always comfortable. You're just rolling with it. You can get a full body motion into it to really get it and drive it home.
And I always teach too in our classes here that if anybody's done any one of these things, doesn't matter if it's body filler or welding, if you've done it for 5 minutes, you have some level of muscle memory or little idiocracy that you want to do.
Correct.
So it's trying to break those habits. I would recommend that you guys put a phone up and record yourself doing it. And because a lot of times you're thinking that you're doing it,
Yeah.
but physically seeing yourself do it, I always tell people when they take our class, do it, record it, send us
Yes.
the video to make sure, because I can look at a video and tell you if you're doing this
Yeah.
or that wrong. So that way you can take this video and compare it to what you're doing and actually correct those things. It was something as simple as me using my index finger on top.
Correct.
It feels so out of place,
foreign, it's
unnatural, but it works so good.
It's like using your left hand,
Yeah,
but you'll get used to it.
yeah. So can you draw us what that
Yeah.
motion was?
So let's say so you're gonna come in and you're gonna start your puddle and you're gonna rotate up and you're gonna get your pause right there and then roll. Pause and roll. Pause and roll. And I'm not going to the bottom because
That's what I did.
gravity's gonna take that puddle and come down. So this is more looking like an open corner joint. You're gonna go up, you're gonna stop, you're gonna see it like a wave cracking. It's gonna roll right over the top and then you roll back down and you roll back in.
The puddle with gravity, being that you stop here, it's gonna flow to the edge. Just to drive this home, let's draw 2 lines vertically and show that puddle.
You would be you'd get more up into it if you were going vertical. But you can see your movement. There's your bead. There's your bead. There's your bead. There's your bead.
And notice he's going edge to edge because the gravity is flowing here in the center where it's hot. It's lava, right?
Yep.
It's flowing down the mountain.
Yep.
We want to keep that flow even, and that's why it's more of a little bit of a triangle feel. Obviously, it's going to be what you're welding, what you feel, what welder, but that is a very good drawn example.
Yeah. And to touch back on this, your start, you're going to come point to point. Your first 2, you're going to worry about the bottom. If you set up your first 2 beads right, all you have to worry about is your top and then roll down. You don't have to look at that bottom edge ever again.
Is that because it's riding on that last?
You're just going right base, you're going right back to your last one. And if you know your first one was good, then your second one, if you copy that, you're going to be good. And it's a tempo, it's a count, it's a movement, it's breathing, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and just keep your body in that motion the whole time.
I can't thank you enough for what you did. You're giving everybody out there a very good starting point as to what to practice. If you're a production guy, if you're trying to start a business and you're trying to train a whole bunch of guys, I would definitely look him up. How do people find you?
Instagram, it's MigMaster Mike. That's my Instagram.
Mig Master Mike.
You just go to that. You can see all my work, all my stuff. My number, my email's in there too. If you want to do a class, I do one-on-ones. I can do that in the garage shop at home. I can come into your shop, take your whole team, get them all up to par. You want your parts help with redesign, stuff like that, how to lay out welds. There's so much that can go into it. Not just welding one-on-one. It can go into more things too of turning a shop around. I'd love to do stuff like that. If you want to reach out to me, reach out at my email. It's migmastermike@aol.com. And that's about it.
If you guys are having trouble hearing any of this and you're on a TV, please take a look on a laptop, a cell phone, and go to the description. However you guys got to find the information, we will have all of his contact information in that description. If you guys like this video, please like, subscribe, stay tuned for more videos. Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We'll see you guys on the next one.